Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nuke coming at you with another episode of Day Trading with Nuke. And wow, yesterday ended in an exciting fashion. Sorry I didn't get a post-market recap out for y'all. I'll probably hit that up a little bit today. Just, man, I was tired as hell. Haven't been sleeping much lately. And I don't want to bore y'all with it, but that's what's going on. That's why I didn't get it out to y'all. But I took 4 decent trades yesterday, and I don't know, exciting. Today, I've got a much smaller watch list for you, so we're going to try and get into that a little bit. Okay, so what happened yesterday is basically we had set up a trend that looked kind of like this, right? And earlier we had it going on, and then it broke out, and then it came back down. And then when it broke this point here, it shot on up. And we got out of this basic range bound situation that we were in. And what took place was it moved back from the pre-market low all the way up to, sorry about that, I hope the mic wasn't too low for y'all. From the pre-market low up to the pre-market high, tested that, and then it dropped back down, and then it came right back up to it at the end of the day. So just easy proof, well, not proof ain't the word I'm looking for, confirmation of just how critical these levels are for you. So what happened overnight, it's held that, and it hasn't really dropped off until the last hour or so, hour and a half. But it's still holding solid here. So what we want to look at for our levels for this morning, you notice we have a narrower, at least at the moment, pre-market movement than what we had yesterday. So the Fibonacci should work a little bit better today. And what are we looking at? So if you scroll over to this side, feast your eyes upon it. Pre-market high is at 251.16 with a pre-market low of 247.10. And if this thing ends up tapering off and selling down again, expect to see it come down to the 243.04, which if we scroll across here, you can look back and see where that area held good resistance for the majority of yesterday, and even here where after it had the breakout, it stopped there, and that hits right on that 243. If it continues to the downside, the next 100%, well, it would be the 200% down extension, would be at the 238.98, which when we look here, you see how that was the yesterday's low, basically? So very much confidence in there, and if it gets the steam to start taking off and going somewhere, on the high side 255.22 and 200% extension on the high side 259.28. Keep these levels in mind as we move forward. All right, we're going to hit you up real quick. First one is going to be Apple. Yesterday, Apple had this gap down, then it came up, and then it just sold off for the majority of the morning. And then, that is not what I wanted you to do. Once the trend broke there and the SPY went, it took Apple all the way back up. So you had 100% move there and then about 75% back into the pre-market action. So what are we looking at today? We have a narrower range of movement on the SPY. We have it holding these levels, which these were reasonably solid levels from yesterday, where we bottomed out at today pre-market. And then up top, you can see we have exceeded this by a little bit. So Apple might go long for a little while today. Then again, it might sell. It could sell off right out of the gate and then go long, or it might have a squeeze out of the gate and then try and make up some of this gap that it created for itself. Either way, let's look at the fib numbers. What are we looking at? Pre-market high of 157.80. Pre-market low of 155, 100% extension to the downside at the 152.20, 200% is at the 149.40. On the upside, 160.60 on the 100% extension to the upside, and 163.40. Average true range is going to be about $6.41. So as you can see, if we traverse this, we should get right at $6. So expect a little fluctuation there. All right. Next up is going to be BABA. By the way, these four, the reason I'm looking at them is this morning they've got much more volume than the other tickers so far. So BABA held this downward trend line yesterday. And yeah, I know there's caps above it and there's valleys below it. But all in all, if you just watch the action, right, it was holding the support until it didn't, then when it broke. And when you draw the resistance line, it was holding that until the SPY took it and away it went. But it never got out of this pre-market high to low range. Well, you had a little bit below here, but you was left with a little bit on top. So it all works out in the wash. So what are we looking at today? Less pre-market action. Currently we have a high of 138 or 139.80 and a pre-market low of 137.16. It's holding this gap up. It's barely dropped off a little bit. So I think this thing has good potential to the upside. But continuing this trend from yesterday, if this holds any weight to it, you might need to watch that it'll bump its head on here. If it gets going, expect a 100% extension to the upside to be around 142.44 and to the downside of 134.52, which if it tanks severely to the downside, this 200% extension would fall in line with this resistance line from yesterday, which would put you around the 131.88 to the downside if it's a horrible day. And remember, today is going to be Friday, so it's not always your best day for trading. I was told that yesterday during the pre-market I had NFX instead of NFLX. Sorry if that confused any of you. It followed the tech stocks, gapped down, came back up a little bit, and then it was an all-day fader right up until it broke the trend where the SPY got a hold of it and just ripped it, pulled it right up there with it sometime around about last hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes of the day. And it was about the 100% pre-market action plus about 50% to the downside. What are we looking at today? I should have moved this over a little bit first. Today, it's had a little bit of a gap up. It's holding above end of day highs yesterday, but it's slowly tapering off a little bit. So I'd expect this thing to have a cover pop, and then with Friday, it'll probably drop on down. But I don't want to say too much because you never know if this thing's going to take a run like it did at the end of yesterday, right? So what do the fibs tell us? Fibs tell us our pre-market high is at 259 with a pre-market low of 253. If it gets to going on the high side, I would expect to see this thing move up to around the 264.70. I don't know if I would expect it into the 200% range or 200% extension to the upside. But that would put you at the 270.50. If this thing falls off the planet and starts going down, this 247.50, if we look back yesterday, you see how that had good resistance or support right up in here. So I would expect to see strong support around that 247.50 all the way down to around 247.12. So 247 to 247.5, that's going to be a strong point of resistance. And then if it breaks loose from there, our next step down is going to be here. So between 241.50-ish and 240. So yeah, about $1 range there. So I could expect that. Plus you've got this resistance line from yesterday. So if it gets absolutely horrible, this 236 would be where I'd expect to find the most resistance and or support, and I wouldn't expect to see it drop below that. But realistically, at the 241 is where I would expect to see this thing stop, even if it's having a really bad day. But we'll see. You can't predict them, right? We just can go off of statistics and observations, and that's what we do. Tesla yesterday just had an awful day getting going. Just once it ended, what was that, Wednesday's aftermarket, once market closed, it just started falling off the map. And then yesterday it picked up with the SPY. It had a hell of a range, but it just wasn't exciting, right? This morning, it gapped up. I hesitate to call that a gap up, just unusual range upwards, and then it's been selling off ever since. So I don't really trust the fib numbers on this one today. What does that look like for us? Pre-market high of 335, pre-market low of 313. 100% extension to the upside is at 356. 100% extension to the downside is at 291. That's a lot of pre-market range here. I'm expecting a little less than that. I wouldn't be afraid to look at the 236 level around here. And let's see. Yeah, probably right around here at the 313. See some serious support. Ugh, it's just ugly, right? Maybe 301. Yeah, because breaking back through the 300 barrier, I just don't see it. You know, that's where psychologically that's a huge amount of resistance. All right, so we're 10 minutes in. I'm going to give you a couple of little smaller tickers for you. We're going to start off with Square. Square had followed the trend of the big competitors yesterday, and then it picked up with the SPY. Today it gapped up, and then it's been consolidating. What does that look like for us on the fibs? Pre-market high puts it at 57.35, pre-market low at 55.60. If it gets steam and it picks on up, we're looking at 59.10. I doubt we'll see 60.85, right? So about $4.31 is the average true range. So yeah, that puts us somewhere more around the $59 mark, maybe 60. I don't see us breaking much out of 60. And then on the downside, if we fell, yeah, somewhere around 53.5 is where I'd be. Yeah, 53.5 is where I'd be looking at. But the 100% extension to the downside would be the 53.85 with a 200% of 52.10. And I just don't see any support down here. So I would expect that the 53 is going to be that psychological hold mark if we do crack. All right, well, that's what I got for you today, guys. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. By all means, leave me some comments. Let me know what you think, and we'll be seeing you soon.